After being released from prison, he went to visit his wife's grave. When he leaned over the tombstone, he turned pale at what he saw. The cold wind howled through the cemetery as he took slow, measured steps toward the familiar plot. His hands trembled, not from the chill in the air, but from the weight of years lost behind bars. Each step forward felt like dragging chains from a past he couldn't escape. The world had changed in the years he had been away. New buildings stood tall, streets had different names, and faces he once knew were no longer familiar. But here, in the quiet solitude of the graveyard, everything remained frozen in time, just as he had left it. His breath was shallow. His heart beat loud in his ears as he approached the simple headstone. The engraved letters of her name, worn slightly by time, sent a fresh wave of grief through him. His knees buckled as he knelt before the grave, his fingers tracing the cold stone. "I'm so sorry," he whispered, voice breaking with emotion. "I should have been here. I should have protected you." Guilt weighed heavier than the prison walls that had confined him. He had spent every night behind bars reliving the past, cursing fate, cursing himself. But no amount of regret could change what had happened. She was gone, and he had missed her last moments, missed saying goodbye. But then, as his eyes adjusted to the dimming light of the evening, something caught his attention. Something was out of place. His breath hitched. At the base of the tombstone, partially buried in the overgrown grass, lay a small, weathered envelope. The edges were worn, the ink faded, yet it was clear that it had been left there deliberately. With shaking hands, he reached for it, his mind racing. Who had left it? And why? His fingers trembled as he unfolded the fragile paper, his eyes scanning the delicate handwriting. And as he read the first line, the blood drained from his face. "My love, if you are reading this, then somehow, someway, you have come back to me." A sharp gasp escaped his lips. His hands clenched the letter as his pulse pounded in his ears. His wife had written to him. But how? Why? What did this mean? He swallowed hard and continued reading, his vision blurring with unshed tears. "They told me you would never return, that you were gone forever. But my heart refused to believe it. So I left this here, hoping, praying that one day you would come back. And if you have, then I need you to know the truth." The truth? His stomach twisted into a painful knot. What truth? As he read on, the cemetery around him seemed to fade away, replaced by memories of a past he thought he understood. Memories that, it seemed, were built on lies. The world had already taken everything from him. But now, it was about to change again. And he wasn't sure if he was ready for what he was about to uncover. His eyes darted around the cemetery, half expecting someone to step from the shadows, to reveal that this was some cruel joke. But there was only silence. He turned back to the letter, forcing himself to keep reading. "I never stopped believing in you. Even when the world turned its back on you, I knew the truth. They said you were guilty, but I knew you weren't. And if you are reading this, then there is still hope. Follow the path to the old oak tree. Look beneath the stone with our initials carved into it. There, you will find the answers you seek." His breath caught in his throat. The old oak tree. Their secret place. A place that had once been filled with love, laughter, and stolen moments away from the world. His fingers curled around the letter as he slowly stood, his resolve hardening. He had spent years lost in the darkness of a prison cell, believing that his story had ended. But now, standing at his wife's grave with her words guiding him from beyond, he realized something. His story was far from over. He turned, stepping away from the grave, his footsteps firm as he made his way toward the old oak tree. The truth had been buried for too long. And now, it was time to uncover it. The path to the oak tree was overgrown, branches clawing at him as he pushed forward. The last time he had walked this way, he had been a different man, a man with hope, with a future. Now he was a man seeking answers. As he neared the massive tree, memories of stolen kisses and whispered promises flooded his mind. His fingers traced the familiar carving of their initials on the bark. Beneath it, a flat stone lay partially covered in moss. With shaking hands, he lifted it. A small, rusted tin lay buried beneath. His pulse quickened as he pried it open, revealing another letter along with a small key. The letter, written in the same delicate handwriting, read, "If you have come this far, then you are ready for the truth. The key belongs to the locker at the train station. Inside, you will find what was taken from you, what they never wanted you to see." His heart pounded. His wife had known something powerful enough to be hidden away. He clenched the key in his fist, a fire igniting in his chest. The past had stolen everything from him. But now, he had a chance to reclaim it. He turned away from the oak tree, determination hardening his features. It was time to uncover the truth. With the small key clenched tightly in his hand, he made his way back through the winding cemetery path. His heart pounded with a mix of anticipation and dread. What could possibly be waiting for him at the train station? And why had his wife hidden it? He reached the street, the dim glow of streetlights casting long shadows on the pavement. The town had changed, but the station still stood where he remembered it. A relic of a past life, its worn benches and flickering lights seemed frozen in time, much like the secrets he was about to uncover. As he stepped inside, the low hum of passing trains and murmurs of travelers filled the air. He scanned the rows of lockers, his fingers tightening around the key as he found the one that matched. Locker 108. With a deep breath, he inserted the key and turned it. The lock clicked, and the door creaked open. Inside was a small, tattered leather bag. He hesitated before pulling it out, his hands unsteady. What had she left for him? Slowly he unzipped it, his breath catching as he saw what lay inside. A stack of aged letters, a set of photographs, and a sealed envelope addressed to him in his wife's handwriting. His fingers hovered over the envelope, the weight of the moment sinking into his bones. He tore it open, unfolding the letter with care. "My love, if you are reading this, then you have found the truth I could never speak. The truth they tried to bury with me." His pulse quickened as he read on. "You were framed." The words burned into his mind like fire. His eyes darted to the photographs, images of people he recognized from his past. Faces he once trusted. Evidence. "They lied to you. They lied to everyone. And I tried to stop them, but they silenced me before I could. This is what they never wanted you to find." Tears blurred his vision. His wife had known the truth, and she had died protecting it. A new fire burned inside him, replacing years of sorrow with something stronger. Determination. He had spent years believing he had lost everything. But now, he had something worth fighting for. He folded the letter, pocketed the photographs, and zipped up the bag. This wasn't over. They had stolen his life. But he was going to take it back. His fingers tightened around the bag as he exited the train station, his mind racing with thoughts of betrayal, loss, and vengeance. The night air was crisp, filling his lungs with a sharp awareness. He was no longer just a man mourning his past. He was a man seeking justice. He knew he couldn't go to the police. The system had failed him once before. If what his wife had written was true, then powerful people had orchestrated his downfall. He had to be careful. He had to be smart. Pulling out the photographs, he examined them under the streetlight. Familiar faces stared back at him, former friends, colleagues, even the lead detective who had testified against him. His gut twisted. They had all played a role in his imprisonment. And his wife had uncovered their secret. One photograph stood out. A man in a dark suit, standing next to a black car. He was shaking hands with another man, one he barely recognized. The background showed a large estate, the kind only the truly powerful could afford. A name was scribbled on the back of the photo: Victor Langley. His blood ran cold. Victor Langley was a name he had heard before, whispered in hushed conversations, always associated with corruption, power, and money. If Langley was involved, then this conspiracy ran deep. His wife had discovered something too big, something dangerous, and she had died because of it. He clenched his fists, the pain of loss merging with the fire of determination. He had spent years trapped in a cage for a crime he didn't commit. But now, he had the truth. And he wasn't going to let them get away with it. He needed a plan. He needed help. And he knew exactly where to start. An hour later, he stood outside a small, dimly lit bar on the outskirts of town. The neon sign flickered, casting an eerie glow over the cracked pavement. This was where he'd find the one person he could still trust. He stepped inside, the smell of cigarette smoke and stale beer thick in the air. His eyes scanned the room until they landed on a familiar figure, a burly man with graying hair, hunched over a glass of whiskey. "Caleb," he said, his voice low but firm. The man looked up, his weathered face etched with years of hard living. His eyes widened slightly in surprise before narrowing with suspicion. "Well, I'll be damned," Caleb muttered. "Thought you were locked up for life." "Guess I got lucky," he said, sliding into the seat across from him. "But I need your help. And I think you'll want to hear what I have to say." Caleb took a slow sip of his drink, watching him carefully. "You always did have a way of getting into trouble. What kind of mess are you dragging me into now?" He pulled out the photograph and placed it on the table. "The kind that gets people killed. But I don't have a choice. They took everything from me. And now, I'm going to take it back." Caleb exhaled sharply, staring at the photo. "Victor Langley," he muttered. "You have no idea how deep this goes, do you?" "Then tell me," he said, his voice steady. "Because I'm not stopping until I get justice." Caleb shook his head, a shadow crossing his face. "You're walking into a war, my friend. Then let's make sure I win." The night stretched on as they talked, piecing together a plan. There were names to track, loose ends to tie up, and dangers at every corner. But for the first time in years, he felt alive. His wife had died protecting the truth. Now, it was his turn to finish what she started. And no one was going to stop him.